Okay, 7th grade. Here's sort of where I left off with just pencil. We can see that this one is still not complete. I would still need to fold this over and do rubbing. And here's a whole bunch of examples that I have not finished. And the reason why is I was not a fan of my abstract design. So these are actually all different ones that I don't even like. So that one that I did an example, I sort of like it, but I'm not even going to finish it. So that's why I want you to do multiple ones. Some you're going to like and some you won't. So I'm getting rid of these, and I want to talk to you a little bit more about some options that I didn't in the last video. The first thing is with the border. If you want to do something like this, where I actually have a double border, a double line that's kind of going across. So as I fold it over and do a rubbing on this side, I can eventually color this in some type of a color. I also have a double border on the inside, which is going to leave us pretty big open space for later on. So if I wanted to actually, put something else inside of here and fold it over, I could do that as well. Since we're talking about the topics of borders here, this border is not a straight line. So if you've already made 1 or 2 and you still have to make 3 or 4, if you choose to, like I mentioned that in the video already, you don't have to do 4. If you like art, this is fun for you, you're listening to music, you're trying to zone out for a little bit, please go ahead and make 4, because I do want you to learn about 4 different color combinations later on. But if you just want to focus on 1, that is also okay. So this border is not straight, it's curved. I also want to talk to you about bands. So I talked about having a straight line. It started on one edge, it ended on another, and if I do this, now I just created a strip or band. It looks like it's unified together. I could do something curved, and I can follow that curve, and that also looks like a band or a strip or a ribbon. The lines don't always have to match up. So if I do something like this, I can match that, okay? Or the next time I do a line, maybe it does not match up. Okay, so now this still looks like one unified unit, even though that the lines do not match up. So you can see that in this example right here, where I drew a band, or a line rather, and then this line does not mirror that first line. One of the other things that I've done that I didn't talk about in the last the last video, is that this line is going over top and then through, inside, and then on the back side, back over on top, and then underneath. And the way that I've done that is just lightly drawing completely through.
Oh boy, okay. And then later on I could erase to make it seem see-through or transparent or overlapped. Okay? So this is the lesson today, is about markers.
because now we are going to go over top of our pencil lines with different types of marker. I like Sharpie markers, but I know that maybe we're at home, we don't have all the supplies. I went through all my kids' art supplies, and I found, you know, Silly Scents and different Crayola markers, high-end type of art markers that I have, this Color Splash thing, and you need to experiment with different types of markers. Let me show you why. This is my favorite. I can make thin lines or really thick depending on how I hold the marker. Same with this one. This is mostly just thin lines, no matter how I use it. But different paper will also give you different results. So I'm just kind of testing out the markers. And that's why I like Sharpie, is I get really nice results. This one's a little bit grayed out, a little bit of a thicker line. Any marker will work. So whatever you find, this one has a chisel tip. So if I go on the edge, I can make fairly thin lines, but if I hold it a different way, I'm going to get super thick, which I don't want to do. Some things I want you to be aware of is holding your marker down in one area. So if I just make a dot like that, or hold it there for a second, or if I hold it there for a few seconds, it gets really thick. This becomes important. That's just one single dot, but if I hold, it'll bleed on the paper. It will bleed and get really a lot thicker. This is important to realize. I have these 3 dots here, 3 circles here for these 2 different markers. The way that I trace over my pencil lines make a difference on the outcome. If I go inside of the pencil line, this is what that circle is going to turn out to look like. If I go directly on the pencil line, that's what it's going to look like. And now I'm going to go on the outside of that pencil, and we can see how that starts to grow on the way that I've decided to trace over that pencil. And that was with this fine point Sharpie marker. I'm going to do an ultra fine Sharpie point and go on the inside of this marker, directly on the pencil line, and on the outermost edge. So depending on your pencil abstract design, you might want to think about before you start going over your pencil lines. Do you want to go inside, on top, or on the outside? And then you can always, you know, erase your pencil marks later on. Okay, so I have some notes up here. I want you to create smooth, confident lines. So your hand can only move so far. So if I have a pencil line going the whole way across the paper, and I want it to be a smooth, confident line, I have my hand rested down, and I can only trace that line so far before I have to stop and pick my hand up and move my paper. Starting and stopping is important when you're creating a smooth, confident line. What I don't want to do is start, stop, and start in different, and put my marker down in different areas, because now it's starting to look very fuzzy. I have areas where let's say I hold my marker down and then start moving, and then hold it down again and start moving, I'm going to have really thick and thin lines. That is not smooth and confident. So I want to make sure that I'm starting and stopping immediately as I go down, put my marker to the paper so I don't get this bleeding. And I also even start a little bit on the inside of my black line. I don't want to start exactly where I stopped. So I kind of put my marker down like I'm landing a plane, and then when I stop, I lift off of the ground again. So I'm kind of starting, starting, and stopping. That's not very confident. So I'm planning ahead, and I'm also turning the paper if I need to turn the paper. So right here I want to turn my paper as I plan ahead, and then I start on that black line again. Now if I ever do make a mistake like that, what I want to do is I'll just make my line a little bit thicker, like that. So this is called line thickness. So I can have thick, thin lines, or I can have it tapered. So you can see that this line here, it's kind of smooth, wavy, or bumpy, but this line here has a little bit more interest to it. Okay, so now it's going up and down, it's going thick and thin. Alright, so on to our abstract drawings. I now want you to start adding marker to your lines here. So here we go. I have 3 sections done. 1, 2, 3. This one still needs to have markers. So I'm going to plan this out. My hand can reach here, so I'm going to have a smooth, confident line there to there. A smooth line starting and stopping. I'm trying not to be jerky or jittery. Smooth, confident lines. I'm landing the plane and then taking off without any hesitation or bleeding. This one's going to be a little bit more difficult. Okay. So I think this one works really well for the thicker Sharpie line, but maybe because this one has more detail, perhaps I would use my thin Sharpie lines. Again, I want to make sure that I'm not doing any type of bleeding as I'm tracing my pencil lines with the marker. Okay, and this one is completely done. Here you can see that I do have thinner lines and thicker lines. I have a double border. So your next step for today's lesson is adding marker over top of your pencil lines. You can create some line thickness if you want, and try to create smooth, confident lines. Completing one is fine. We'll talk about how we'll break that up to learn about color combinations. Or if you want to complete 4 different ones because you love art as much as me, please do that as well. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.